We've got some folks who we tricked into sticking around. I'm sorry, we didn't tell you you could go, so we're going to take advantage of your knowledge one more time. Let's pick up the conversation where we were. Okay, it has wide-ranging effects on a community. It impacts home sales, people leaving, looking for different schools. Is accreditation are we being too hard on it? Is this something that we have to have and we just have to kind of power through, muscle through these hard years in the desert here, and then the outcome will be better? Mary, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it has to be called something. We need to be keeping track of children being educated, how well they're being educated. When we put it in a critical frame as opposed to a productive frame, I think that creates quite a problem. And therefore you get, they're unaccredited, and the stigma that goes with it. So maybe a better job of showing where you want to go with it, who's doing the right thing, that people are moving forward and making progress. That would be helpful.
Dr. Alex, Dale, Laura, jump in. You guys are the experts here. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, you've got to have a system that shows how good schools are, but I mean, like they say in financial investment, past performance is not necessarily an indication of future results. So you've got to have a way to say, this is what you've done so far, whether it's fair or not. It's comparing apples to apples, at least, because at least all the schools are being judged the same way. And if some people think that they're being judged unfairly because the standards are not what they should be looking at, that's something that they can bring to the attention of either the Department of Elementary, Secondary Education, or maybe the legislature has to step in. But as long as everybody's being judged the same way, that at least gives some sort of yardstick to tell how your schools are doing compared with everybody else.
Laura, they may be all judged the same way, but do they all have the same resources? Is there a better way to do this?
That's the part I was thinking. I think that they all need to be judged the same way, and I can see that, accreditation, the whole purpose of the accreditation is to make sure that, that all the schools meet this acceptable level of quality. And so I think that the resources are very important. We don't have the resources that a lot of other schools have. And I think that's where sometimes we fall short. And then you find the same schools having the same problems, St. Louis Public, it was Riverview, now it's Normandy. And so we have to start looking at resources. I think that plays a very big part.
Dr. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I think when a principal has to decide between heat and books, I think it creates a really pressing dichotomy in terms of how we educate our children. So it certainly, I want to focus on the difficulty of teaching, though, in terms of the measure that we're using to try to figure out if good teaching is happening in these schools. There's a lot more that goes with this. A lot of your panelists have talked about poverty, have talked about racism, talked about the issues of the community that are all linked together with what is effective teaching. And again, if the measure is not capturing that, if the measure isn't capturing whether a kid is hungry in school while he's taking this test, or all the other factors that come into learning, it's missing something.
Okay, I'll open this up to all of you. Dale, and maybe I'll start with you, but anybody jump in here. We know the problem, and we could probably talk a lot longer about it. Are there any solutions that you've seen anyone talking about? Is there any light at the end of this tunnel that isn't a train?
Well, I mean, we talk about resources. If you look at resources in the history of Missouri public education, there's something called the foundation formula, which is basically so complicated that maybe 3 people in the entire state understand how it works. Yeah. But the basic concept is every school district will have an adequate foundation of resources, so that that there may not be a Cadillac, but there'll be a good vehicle that runs well. The only problem with the Missouri Foundation formula is it's not necessarily fully funded. It's never fully funded.
That's right.
And it's not necessarily fairly funded. I mean, every time something comes up, I mean, we've got Proposition B on the ballot next week, and 50% of that money, if the cigarette tax is raised, is supposed to go to elementary and secondary education. Well, sure, that would be a big shot in the arm, but despite what some people say, there's never a guarantee that all that money that's supposed to be new money is not going to be put in at the
Right.
top, and that other money is going to be taken out at the bottom,
Right.
so
That's
that
right.
so that the funding doesn't necessarily end up to be fully funded. So if it's not fully funded and it's not fairly funded, it's not working the way it's supposed to.